All right, so we're going to fill out our learning card on BoxPlots now. We're going to start off with this set of data. And at this point in time, it really doesn't matter what this data is and what it represents. We just have this big set of data right here. Now, one thing that we want to do when we are creating a box plot is we want to sort this data. So I've taken the time and went ahead and sorted this data set from least to greatest down here below. What I would say is there are videos out there. In fact, I think I have a video that tells you and shows you how you can sort data using your calculator. In a little bit here, I'll show you some things about the calculator, or put some things in this part of the learning card about the calculator. But make sure that you go watch some videos, whether it's one of mine or somebody else's, on how to use the calculator with one var stats to find your 5-number summary, and then also how to use the calculator to sort a data list. Or you can just talk to me in class if you decide to do that if you're in my math class. Once we have our data sorted from least to greatest, we can then find the 5-number summary. The 5-number summary is used to help us create a box and whisker plot, or just a box plot. Those are both the same, a box and whisker and box plot. The 5-number summary consists of the minimum data value, the first quartile, the median data value, the third quartile, and the maximum. So that can come from up here. The minimum value in this case obviously is going to be 27. The maximum is 114. The median is the middle value. Well, when you start to count through this, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 values. So if I take the top 9 and the bottom 9, what I end up with is 2 values in the middle to find the median. Well, in order to find the median, I find the average of those two. So 47 plus 49 divided by 2 is 48. So the median of this data set is 48. So once again, here's 27, the minimum, and here is 114, the maximum. 48 is the middle number between 47 and 49, and now I have to find the quartiles. Well, the quartiles are basically the median of the lower half for the first quartile and the median of the upper half for the third quartile. So without counting the median and the middle of the entire data set, starting from 27 up to 47, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 values. So the middle number will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 44. And if I count from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 44. So this right here, the the median of the lower half, which is the first quartile, is 44. I could do the same thing for the top half of our data. We have 9 data values here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 68. And then from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 68. So 68 is our median of the top half, which is our third quartile. With that, we now have our 5-number summary. And from our 5-number summary, we can create our box plot. So I'm going to go ahead and create that right now. Well, the thing I'm going to start with is, let's choose a different color here. Let's go with red. What I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to take the quartiles, the first quartile, the third quartile, and the median, and create my box. Now, I probably should have some numbers in here, so let me go ahead and put those in. All right, so there's my data value. There's my numbers on my number line. I need to have those labeled there. Now I'm going to start to put in the box. So Q1, the first quartile, is at 44, so I'm going to put a line right about, looks like right about here. And then my median is at 48, so 48 puts me right about here. My third quartile is at 68, which will be right about here. And now I'm going to create my box. So there we go. There's the box part of the box plot, or the box and whisker plot. Now, I'm going to go ahead and find the minimum and the maximum and take my whiskers out to those values. So my minimum is going to go from the first quartile all the way to 27, which would be right about there. And then my other whisker will go from the third quartile all the way to 114, which is right about here. And there is my box plot. So I've created my box plot. Now, you can go beyond the 5-number summary and actually find fences and then adjust for outliers. So let's go ahead and do that now. In order to adjust for outliers, we need to find what's called an upper and a lower fence. When finding the upper and lower fences, you want to use these formulas. So the lower fence would be the third quartile plus 1.5 times the interquartile range, whereas the lower fence is equal to the first quartile minus 1.5 times the interquartile range. And the interquartile range is calculated by taking the third quartile, which in this case is 68, minus the first quartile, which is 44. So let's go ahead and do these calculations now, and then we'll talk about how we can use these fences to determine outliers. Okay, so here's my calculations. I start with the interquartile range, which is Q3 minus Q1, or 68 minus 44, which is 24. And now I plug that into my two formulas, along with the third quartile and the first quartile. And for the upper fence, I end up getting 104 for my upper fence. My lower fence is calculated as being 8. So now how do we use these fences to determine outliers? Well, any of our data values up here that are outside of those fences, so any data values that are larger than the upper fence, or any data values that are lower than the lower fence or less than the lower fence, would be considered outliers. So if I go back up here to my data set that I have sorted, what I see is that the lower fence is at 8. There are no values that are lower than 8. Our minimum is 27, so there's no outliers on the low side. But my upper fence is 104, and there is one data value right here at 114, which would be considered an outlier. So now how do I adjust my box plot to show this outlier? Well, this is what I do. I still have the same minimum, the same first quartile, the same median, and the same third quartile. So I'm going to go ahead and make the same box right here. Okay, so there's my box and whisker plot for the lower end going to the medium and the minimum, and also the box. But now I need to take care of this outlier. Well, this outlier is at 114. So what I'm going to do is put a little dot at 114. So there's my dot right there at 114, which is my outlier. But what do I do about this whisker that's on the right side? Well, I take the whisker from the box to the largest data value that's inside the fence. And the largest data value inside the fence is 82. So I'm going to take this whisker from the box all the way to the largest data value that's inside the fence, which is 82, which is right about there. So now I have a box and whisker plot that shows an outlier after I have made the calculations for the upper and lower fences. Now, one thing that one important aspect about a box plot is that it allows you to use socks to describe the distribution. For this particular box plot, we can see that the shape of it is skewed right. Now, down here without, if we distinguish the outlier, what we can see is that this box kind of looks balanced. It kind of looks symmetric, but because the median is shifted over to the left, that tells us that this tail over here is longer. You can see that in the red box plot here, that the whisker or the tail on the right-hand side is longer than the whisker on the left-hand side, so the shape of this box plot is skewed right. Now what about O, which stands for outliers and unusual features? Well, there's no unusual features about this box plot except for the one outlier that we found. And we just need to make note that there's one outlier at 114. C stands for center, and because the shape of this particular box plot or distribution is skewed right, we will use the median to describe its center. And the nice thing about box plots is the median is right there, that line in the middle of the box, or I should say inside the box. It's not always in the middle of it. So the median in this case is 48. Finally, we can look at spread. And when we have a box plot, the easiest measure of spread that we can look at is the interquartile range, which we found to be 24. Now, we could also talk about the range, but in this case, because it is skewed right, the median is the best way to describe the center, and the interquartile range is the best way to describe its spread. Now, what about the calculator? How can we, what buttons do we push on our calculator in order to find the 5-number summary and create a box plot? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to enter your data, I should say data, not date, but enter your data into L1, list number 1. And the way to do that is by hitting the stat button on your calculator and then hitting number 1, which is edit, to get into your lists. And then you can edit your lists all you like. Again, I have other videos that show you how to do this, but this is nice to put into this learning card to remind you. Once you've got your data into your list, then you want to find the 5-number summary. In order to do that, you hit the stat button again, then arrow over to the calculate menu, and then choose 1var stats. Once you get to that point, follow the instructions, and then you will be able to calculate your 5-number summary. Once you have the 5-number summary, it should be pretty easy to make a box plot. So I hope you learned some things from this learning card, and I hope you have fun in your stats class.